You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1095. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I am so excited to have you listening to this show today. We're going to be talking some things leadership. For me, I got really lucky when I was in the Boy Scouts and in the Cub Scouts. So my, elementary, middle school, high school, I had some leadership opportunities. They have these things called patrols. So that's usually kids like your own age. So that's usually 6 to 8 boys. Now they have girls in the Scouts also. And you'd had your patrol leader, your assistant patrol leader. And so, if you're doing a hiking trip, that's the person that's helping get everyone together and, make sure we plan a week ahead of time about what food we have to buy and, kind of organizing all those sorts of things. And then kind of above that is you have your senior patrol leader and your assistant senior patrol leader. And these are kind of the people that are in charge of all the patrols as young people. And in a lot of ways, to me, that was such a pivotal thing to show me what it takes to be a leader. That, the ones that were worse, in middle school and high school, where the kids were like, I'm the leader, follow me. And the ones that were best were the ones that they did the work, they set the example. Even just yesterday, my daughter had a volleyball game, and she was bummed because she's on an 8th grade team, that the skill set isn't where she was hoping to be. She's one of the maybe more skilled players, but it's sort of like the kind of B team. And at the beginning, we talked about how you can be a leader in this situation. You feel like these other girls aren't taking it seriously. You can help in that situation. And so before every game, we talk about what are 1 or 2 things that you want to do for yourself and 1 for the team. And so, for one game, she was like, I'm going to call every single ball really loud. And I'm going to just be in the ready position every single time and just say, like, we're ready. And it's been amazing to watch the first few games, how they have won all of their games so far. And not because any of them are superstars, but because they really are a team that is now, other girls are getting in on it, and calling the ball more and working together. And it was that leadership of my daughter there. And sometimes those formative leadership moments really help dictate our future. But then other times we don't have those opportunities and we need to learn a thing or two, which is why I'm so excited about Chris Thyberg, who is joining us today. Chris is on a mission to cultivate joy at work, one growing leader at a time. His coaching declaration serves as a compass, ensuring that leaders can harness your capacity, power, and wholeness to pursue great purposes. As a trusted partner, guide, and companion, Chris is committed to supporting growth so that the impact ripples through those you lead and ultimately contributes to the betterment of the world. Chris, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Joe, thanks so much for having me here. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, a lot of that early leadership, as I said in the intro, came from the Scouts and, then student government, other things like that. For my daughter, I can see it starting to blossom in volleyball and other things. I'm wondering for you, are there any childhood leadership experiences you had, or what are some of those early life leadership experiences that helped you maybe dip your toes into leadership for the first time?
Well, I'll go in the Wayback Machine to working with my dad. My parents had a camp and conference center in Connecticut, and we lived there on the property. So you can imagine from the age I was big enough to push a broom and wash dishes, I was on the unpaid staff. And I love my parents very, very much, but my dad was a difficult person to work with and work for. And so I think some of my earliest experiences were, if this is leadership, I wonder what else it could be like.
Mm.
And in my school experience, I wasn't particularly athletic. I played on some teams, but never a captain, never a strong force. So happy to hear your daughter's story. Uh, my kids have played volleyball competitively, and watching them grow in the sports arena has been a powerful message for me. But I think that time with my dad, I saw something different in my mom. My mom would be very concerned about the relational glue. My dad, as the founder of this work, was really, his focus was so much on performance, on results, sometimes on perfection. And he held very high standards to himself, for himself, and passed that on to us. I'm very grateful for that. I learned some self leadership things about taking initiative. If I saw something that needed to be done, I didn't need to wait to ask for permission. I could go try it out, and I should try it out giving my very best. Nothing half hearted. Now, that can be a hard space to work under. That's a difficult kind of leadership, although it has great virtues. My mom complemented it with the interpersonal, the connectivity that is needed to keep people engaged in the work, moving through the times when maybe they're a little out of their depth in what they're able to do or the kind of day they've had. Now, I took that forward into my entire leadership journey and was always fascinated by what were those leaders like who caused me to sit up a little straighter, right? And my shoulders were a little broader. And I said, I can do that. I'll take that on, that hard assignment. I know it's going to stretch me both in a skill set, both in expertise, but I also sense it was going to stretch my inner capacities to deal with greater risk, bigger stakes, more people counting on me to point the way and say, we're going this way and we're going together. We're all in it. And what struck me is that this is the notion of serving leadership. These great leaders were serving me to grow up into my own power, my own capacity. Their power was with me and for me. And they were not afraid. Here's the big thing, Joe. They were not afraid that my power would grow in me.
Mm. I think that's so essential that, like, when leaders aren't intimidated by other people growing. I think that, we've all had bosses or people that led us that you could tell that it was just like they were scared of people kind of growing in their power and their abilities. And to me, I want practice of the practice to be a place where people can grow, they can expand their skills, and ultimately we're only borrowing staff.
Yeah.
Even if they stay there their whole life, at some point they're going to retire or die. So it's like they're all on loan to us, and they're choosing to have part of their life include me and practice the practice. And to me, I want them to be able to create jobs that they absolutely love. That if they outgrow a position, that they come to me and we talk about, hey, I've outgrown this position. Can we talk about maybe moving into some other opportunity here?
Yes.
When you think about leaders, what are a handful of traits that they develop over time that help them be more effective?
Mm-hmm. First and foremost, I want to pick up on what you've said. The people we work with are entrusted to us as stewards of their human flourishing. If we're leaders, we spend tons of time at work, and it really shouldn't be miserable. It really is the job of the leader, the responsibility of the leader to cultivate the conditions, to create, if you will, the container, the culture, the ethos, the good soil in which people then can grow up and out into big purposes that really matter. So coming back to the leader, as I work with all my clients, the first focus is leader, lead yourself well. If you can't lead yourself from the inside out, if you can't be in places of high emotional and relational energy, not always really pleasant, if you can't self regulate, if you can't offer spaces for people to calm themselves and come around to shared purpose, then you can have all the outer skills in the world and balance your bottom line and hit all your marks. It's just not going to matter if you can't lead yourself from within and then lead others from that essential core of who you are as a whole human being. Mind, yes, all the stuff you know, all the ways you make meaning of the world. And I know, people in therapy, so much of it, so much of the work that's helped me in my own journey has been to check my mind, check my thinking. What in here is unhelpful? What is just flat out false and limiting? So for leaders to know how to do mind shifting, and they need to do heart shifting. Where are the things that deeply move them, motivate them, call to them? It even resides in the body. Can leaders find their physical presence? I have so many clients who come in, especially middle managers, say, I need more leadership presence. I need more leadership presence. I want to have more influence. And we ask the question, and so are you able to be present to yourself? Are you able to be really present with others? Because that's going to be the root. So lead yourself well from the inside out. Right alongside that is there's the outer game of leadership, how we show up, what we do, how we say it, how we communicate it, how we make decisions. Yes, yes, and yes. And there's the inner game of leadership. Who am I as a leader? What are my deepest values? Where are my own growing edges where I'm being pushed and challenged? And maybe above all, why do I want to be a leader at all?
Hmm. Now, I
These
wonder if
are,
you could dig
yeah.
into that a little bit more. So imagine someone's listening, they're a practice owner. Maybe they're starting to add their first couple of staff.
Mm-hmm.
So they're adding a couple counselors, clinicians to be working with them. Maybe they have a virtual assistant or a biller. So maybe they're growing their team. Maybe they're 3 to 5. And so you just listed some really good questions for introspection. Walk us through what you would want that growing leader to do, to think about, to enact in, say, their next 2 months or so.
Mm-hmm. So what I've just laid out, I'll just summarize as awareness. The next bit is that they develop a more agile, a more flexible set of behaviors that when they notice the things like I'm about to do that same thing I do and it doesn't end well. And they can notice, that's a dynamic at home. That's a dynamic here and there. I'm about to do it with that new employee. I'm about to have that kind of a dramatic reaction thing with my new assistant or this new person in the practice. And pause, just take this big breath, pause, and say, what other moves do I have? And then a lot of coaching is to build out a strong repertoire that then becomes habit by repeated practice. And so just to be willing to try out these moves and to say to people often, hey, I'm trying out some new stuff. I want you to hold me accountable. So a big part of this feeds into the creation of trust. Trust is the coin of the realm for all of us. And so first and foremost with these new people is, can they trust you? And can you trust them? And I will point out 4 pillars of trust, quite concrete and practical. Joe, you trust me, part 1, when you know I am competent to do what I'm asked. So we need to show the competence as leader and the lead practitioner that others can look at us and trust our competence. And we need to encourage people to grow in their competence so that we can trust them. The second is you can trust me, Joe, because I am competent and I do what I say I will do. I'm reliable. Well, we have to model that first as leaders, and then we have to create the conditions, the coaching, the training, so that people really know what is expected. For example, in that delegation I just made to you, was it clean? What do I mean by clean? Did you know what conditions of satisfaction were? Did you know what a good job looks like? How long it should take? What resources you need to do it? When my wife says, "Hey, honey, take out the trash," and I say, "Sure," and she means today, and I think it means sometime this week, then we're going to have a mismatch and the trust won't be there. But it's a simple matter, actually, of some good practices of clean communication, of great requests, delegations. So we have competence, we have reliability. Then we need to trust each other about our motivations. That I have your best interests at heart. You have my best interests at heart. And we have the best interests of this practice and the clients, the patients we serve. They are our guiding North Star. So you can be super competent, Joe, and really reliable. You always do what you say. But if you're like plotting my overthrow with all that, then no, there's not going to be trust. And the fourth element is just we really learn how to communicate clearly. So there aren't the hidden messages, there aren't the uncertainties or lacks of clarity. We just trust each other to keep talking and talk again and talk again. And even if it gets hard, we leave a hard conversation with, we're not going to cut. We're not going to cut off or break relationship. We're going to stay in communication. Of course, sometimes there are people who just can't be trusted or are not capable or whatever, and it's not the right place for them to be. And thus we have to have that really difficult conversation that speaks truth, speaks it in love, and really hopefully sends that person off in a better direction to flourish someplace else.
So competent, reliable, motivation, and communicate. I love that. It's never too early to start thinking about tax season. That's why I've partnered with my friends over at Herd. Herd serves as the financial back office built specifically for therapists in private practice. They're an all-in-one financial solution that combines software with human support to handle bookkeeping, taxes, payroll, and more. Regardless of whether you're a seasoned clinician or are in your first year of your practice, Herd will identify growth areas and streamline best financial practices for your business. When you sign up with Herd, you'll connect your bank accounts so your transactions will be automatically pulled in and categorized. My favorite thing about Herd is their allocation guide, which helps you decide how much to pay yourself each month and how much to set aside for taxes. You'll also receive financial insights such as profit and loss statements and monthly reports. You can say goodbye to poring over spreadsheets and guessing your tax deductions or quarterly payments. Focus on your clients, and Herd will take care of the rest. Sign up for a free consultation today at joinherd.com/Joe and get 1 month free with promo code Joe. Again, that's joinherd.com/Joe. What are some traps, like young, and I don't mean in age, but like early stage leaders? So people that maybe haven't owned their own business, they finally are getting to 5 or 10 employees or contractors. Like what are some traps they tend to fall in when they're in that early stage practice?
That is a great question. I love the phrase early stage, and I hope some of our listeners here are aware of theories of adult development from people like Keegan and Leahy at Harvard, Bill Torbert. These stages of development. And when we say stages, earlier is not bad, later is not good. There's nothing moral about it. It's just stages of human maturation. So younger leaders will lean on early conventional stages of expert achiever. They've maybe always been rewarded for being the smartest in every class ever. Expert, yay. And they've maybe been such the hardest worker. Achiever, yay. And then they get into these gray places, in between spaces. And that expert achiever is now in whitewater rapid conditions. It's complex, not just complicated. And there aren't no such things as best practices. We don't even know where the cause and effect lines are running. So often the less experienced leader, the leader still growing, comes up to this growing edge. And the trap is, if I'm just more of an expert, if I just work harder, if I just delegate to you, but take it back because I'm the only one who can do it right. Oh man, that is a sinkhole. But to move to the space of, I'm really okay with uncertainty. I'm really okay with vulnerability. I'm really okay with questioning some things I really, really believed and was always rewarded for. Now we move into the space of those levels of a self-authoring leader. That is a leader who's not just driven by what others say from the outside. They're not externally defined. They take a stage of, I will internally start writing and owning my own story. And then to move to a place of self-transforming where, oh, there's my story, but there's your story. And it's not either or. It's probably a lot of complex both and. How do you and I, John, move together to find these integrations at higher levels from two things that look really, really good, but they seem to be pulling apart? So to summarize that, early leaders often get stuck in polarity thinking, very binary. And they fall into mind traps like, I'm sure I know that this simple story explains everything. And that simple story doesn't explain everything. And when we reflect, that simple story might be one we've told ourselves all along, like the story, I need to be the smartest kid in every room I'm in, or I can't trust anybody to do this. The only person who can do it well is me. Those are simple stories that need to be let go for more complex stories.
I love
Another
that.
one that comes in the literature is something called immunity to change. And that's simply this. When a leader at any stage who is noticing, I say I'm going to do this. I say I'm going to do this. I've said it out loud in front of other people that I'm going to do this. You know what? I don't do it. Why? And one of the things that emerges in immunity to change is we have a commitment for something else, and we don't even know what that commitment is. And that other commitment is trumping the first one. So, for example, I might say, I want to be more vulnerable with my people in my leadership role. But if that other commitment says, if I'm vulnerable, people won't like me. If people won't like me, people won't follow me. If people won't follow me, this place is going to go down the tubes. And that might not even be in awareness that there's this other commitment to be liked. And that vulnerability might cost them being liked. And when we can surface those other competing unconscious commitments and then probe into where do they come from? And do they serve us now? And how can I have the best of, yes, I'm vulnerable, and I can be okay if people don't like me? Wow, I can have both those? Yes, you can. And those are just two examples of places dealing with polarities, dealing with immunity change, where younger leaders, less experienced leaders can really find a huge growth spurt. But again, this is inner game of leadership work. This is inside out change.
Well, Chris, I want to dig into kind of mid-stage and late-stage leaders. So leaders that have grown their practices, their things are clicking along outside of themselves. That challenge of early stage is often taking hats off, challenging that mindset of only I can do this as well as possible. And these kind of middle stage and late stage leaders, I oftentimes think of that they've often built a great team. They may even have clinical directors that are overseeing things. Things might be even a little bit easier for them in regards to their actual workload. What should leaders that are able to move more into that visionary state, in that more CEO type of state where they aren't involved in the hands-on types of things of running the business as much, what do they need to be cognizant of when they're at that phase?
Great. Well, let's start first with those emerging leaders. Often what clients in that stage bring to me is this desire to have influence in 360 degrees. So they're at a place, they're not the tippy top of the top, so they can't dictate. They need to have influence upward. They need to have good influence with peers. They might have people reporting to them under their leadership. They have to really be skillful in those directions, 360 degrees. And what emerges for these leaders is such a powerful notion, and it doesn't go away ever. The great leader really understands followership. The great leader understands what it is to be a great follower. Now, in middle, it makes sense because there is a structure. Maybe even if you're the owner of the practice, you have other stakeholders outside your control, your influence, that you need to dance with. So to understand that helping people become great followers and being a great follower who offers the support and the encouragement and the powerful, courageous collaboration in all those directions, especially upward. That I find is a very common space that I'm in with these upper level, but not tippy top. Now, when you use the phrase chief executive officer, yes, agreed. I then see those leaders moving into places like, I need to be the chief vision officer. I need to be the chief values officer. I need to be the chief culture officer. And in those spaces, yes, execution, result is super important. It always is. But these other dimensions fill that out with what creates the culture for flourishing here, what create the conditions for flourishing and thriving at work. At that stage, especially, the C-suite leaders add this to the C. Are they great coaches? Can they start not being trained necessarily formally the way I was with all this certification from the International Coaching Federation, but take a more coaching approach and have more coach-like conversations so that they are really skillful at bringing those other people along. And the proof of that pudding at the end is, I'm the one at the tippy top of this enterprise. How will I leave it better than I started it, even better than it was at its best? How do I look at legacy, longevity, and a kind of lasting impact in the world so that I come back 5 years later into my new set of fun things I'm doing, not running this business anymore, and I look back and say, oh man, these people are doing a really great job. And I did my job to set them up to step up right to the most senior levels of the organization.
So awesome. Well, Chris, the last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
Friends, I'd want you to know how important you are to me in my work as a coach. Because I know as a coach, we will go to spaces with clients that look back in their past to get a sense of how did you get here? But as a coach, that is information to help people understand their present with new awareness, new agility, new accountability for making those new moves, and move toward the future. My role is not the kind of healing of deep wounds, and I need to be so careful if trauma shows up in the room, or I'm working with neurodivergent clients, or one client said he's experiencing right now a sense of of moral wounding. He's witnessing something that just seems so wrong. I know where I end and my client begins, and I know often where therapy is such an important complement to the work of coaching. I've even been with some clients where I say, I think at this stage, the readiness is not there for coaching. The capacities are not there for coaching. Are you in some other supportive places with a therapy or a 12-step tradition or? So please, dear friends, know that I know my lane and I stay in it, but I see the close connection between my work as a coach, your work as therapists, as practitioners of mental, emotional, even spiritual health. And then when I'm with clients, you and I, we share this role. I'll put it this way. We are doulas of the human spirit. My clients I hold fully are already capable, resourceful, and whole. They are already pregnant with the next great leader they are becoming. My job cannot be to have that baby for them. I can't even do the labor for them. And when I kind of press too hard to help them get results, I actually get in my own way. I need to step back, but I can be a really good midwife. And my experience of great therapy has been, that was a person alongside me for the birthing of that next breakthrough, beautiful self in Chris that is in process of becoming.
Mm-hmm. Chris, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where should we send them?
Well, please find me at my website, theservingway.com. And I will ask as you go there, please see that you see yourself first. If you don't, please let me know, because this is not about me being a fantastic super coach. This isn't even about what is coaching and what can it do for you. This is a sense of, somebody sees me. Somebody gets where I'm stuck. Somebody cares as a trusted partner to help me do the work of my own liberation and growth. So come to theservingway.com and see if it doesn't speak to you as the hero of your own journey, or when you think of leaders that you are serving in your capacities, they should take a look at that website. They would see themselves and their potential. Theservingway.com. Also at LinkedIn, you'll find me under my name, Chris Thyberg, and that's where I post occasional materials. And then, if there's interest, please just book a 30-minute exploratory call. It's never a sales call. It's actually a taste of coaching. If I were with you, John, it would be, John, tell me about you. What do you want? Where are you? What seems to be in the way? How might you be getting in your own way? And what would it look like to make some real progress toward the things that matter most to you? My job is to listen, to reflect, to ask really good questions, to hold energetic space. And at the end of that call, it's simply, I hope you feel a bit more clear if coaching is right for you, what your desires are, and if I could be a trusted companion, a trusted midwife in your process.
Thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
My pleasure. And all the best to all our listeners. Thank you for the incredibly valuable and super hard work that you do. I personally am deeply grateful.
Well, wherever you are at on your phase of leadership, we are here to help you. We hope that you are doing an amazing job in your practice. And if not, reach out to us. We'll always send you in the right direction, whether that's people that we know or within our team or people like Chris. Also, we couldn't do this show without our sponsors. You know, the end of the year is right around the corner. And if you haven't started thinking about your tax season, now is the time to connect with Herd. Herd serves as the financial back office specifically for therapists. They help you with transactions, with categorizing, with your allocation guide, so many spreadsheets that you don't have to worry about. Head on over to joinherd.com/Joe. Again, that's joinherd.com/Joe, and use code Joe15 to get a discount on those plans. Again, that's joinherd.com/Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.